Okay, here is the stem after it has had the sides leveled. You know, there's no way you can see the gap and stuff on a camera here, but trust me, this is light tight on both sides. And overall, our length from the back of the lip to the end of the stem is almost identical. How can I hold this? The way there's an extra little tube sticking out the back here, I could have cut that on this one, but there's no real point to it that I can see. More elegant to leave that off. But from the back of the lip here is identical to within, oh gosh, 1/3 of a millimeter maybe. So anyway, that's ready for final polish. I'll hit it with some relatively coarse stuff and then just shine it up. Now what was already polished, I resanded. I used some 800 and hit it lightly, and that's to just make sure there aren't any scratches, because they'll show up instantly if you've got a little dig somewhere, and the white dust of using a very light fine sandpaper will go into the crack or the little scratch, and you'll be able to see it. So I didn't change the shape of the cone at all with that light touch. All that's left is to deal with the shape of the button here. And I thought I'd show you how I do that for no other reason than, again, I'm kind of covering some of the details just because. And now I did this once already for a Dunhill in early days, but figured it can't hurt to talk about it excuse me, again. And one of the main things you got to remember is, if you're an expert, you don't need to be watching these videos. If you're not an expert, like a Danish or German master carver, or even a few of the Americans, do not be tempted to shape the button on a French wheel. A spinning sanding disc, it will, oh man, it's over in an instant, and all your work goes out the window. You have to begin again. So I do not strongly discourage that. Whereas if you use hand tools, you can check every few strokes and you'll never set a foot wrong. Now I've had great luck by taking one of these foam board shaper things here and going front to back with it, because it lets you control the angle much better. If you go side to side, you've got to maintain both this angle and then roll it like that, and that's too much for my ability anyway. So I just go back and forth like so. Gently rocking the stem from side to side as you do that, and you can control the shape of what you're creating very carefully. If you look at the scratches that you're making, you'll see just what's going on, and then look at the face of the button as well. In a minute we're going to tuck that in on the sides, but for now I'm just going to keep going on this. When in doubt, if you're making pipes for sale anyway, leave your buttons a little bit tall. You can even take this kind of equipment to a show and modify what your customer buys on site, but you can't add material. If it's a little too short, it'll feel like it wants to swing side to side in your mouth. It's a very uncomfortable sensation and one that will keep you from smoking a pipe. You won't choose it out of your rack when you've got that going on. And there isn't much you can do except get a whole new stem made for it, whereas if you leave the button a little tall, setting it right is no more work than you're seeing right now. It's quite easy in relative terms. Okay. And I get this angle by hand. It's about 15 degrees. And just give it some of that. And then you can round the ends with something that's a little bit finer. I'm a big fan of ergonomically comfortable buttons. I like them more rounded and gentle on the edges than is the rule. There's a few of the Danes that like them as rounded and kind of squishy as I do. But most of the classic English and American brands have a little harsher button than I personally prefer. Now, when I make a copy for somebody, I'll do whatever they like, and if they want me to copy the original, I'll do that faithfully. But if I'm making a stem for myself, or somebody says, do what you do best or what you think you do best, make it as comfortable as you can, and then I will tend to round things a bit more than is generally thought to be the way to go. And once you get this about where you want it, that's pretty close. We're going to level it or square it up from the back edge using this slotting file, nut slotting file that you've probably heard me talk about on other videos, but it's such a work saver that I have to mention it whenever I can, because I don't know where I'd be without that thing. It's a file that has texture on the edges, and the flats of it are smooth, so that you can push it up and cut only the back edge of the button. And if you got a little small amount of crookedness here, that's okay. Here's the time to clean it up. One edge of this is rough and the other one's smooth. Okay, that's pretty close. And the final step here, this is now, the back edge of this is sharp enough you'd cut your lip on it. Very uncomfortable. The thing to do is to take a piece of thin, tough paper And I use security envelopes, which are those ones that have the blue printing. Wrap that around tightly, tuck it up under there like so. Take a file that has one live edge and one dead edge, basically the opposite of the nut seating file, and do this number. And you can roll it over as much as you like, depending on your taste and aesthetics. And that will be pretty much it. I'll polish the funnel a little bit on the inside, but there's nothing to see when I do that. I just bumped the camera again, sorry. And that is about it, except for the shining up part. And here it is next to the original. The profile is quite similar. It's not identical, but close enough for government work. And this entire process was certainly easier than if we'd taken a length of solid rod and begun with that, put it into a lathe. I've done it before, and that's a bit of work. This was just the modification of a pre-existing blank. So that's it. As usual, I'll take a couple of pictures at the end of this and stick them up as a final result as an extra video after I shine it up. Just some snapshots, but that should be it. And as always, thank you for watching, and yada yada yada. And more good stuff on the horizon. I finally got the camera working more or less the way I like it, with the light meter and focus and all that kind of stuff. So it's less stressful for me to make these than it was in the beginning. So that's it. Take care and happy repairs. Bye for now.